Welcome to APG Pathshala. Today we are going to discuss basics of Bishop Berkeley's epistemology in the paper Epistemology. This module is written by Pravesh Yung of IIT Bombay. I am Raghuram Raju from University of Hyderabad. One way to start discussing the epistemology of Bishop Berkeley, who is one of the prominent empiricists along with John Locke and David Hume, is to preface this module by a general statement about philosophy. Philosophy is a subject where you can say anything, but you must give justifications or arguments in support of what you say. This is one of the important features or the core feature of the subject philosophy. Take two examples, one each from India and the West. In India, you have the Vedanta, particularly of Shankaracharya's Advaita Vedanta, which has its beginnings in Gaudapada, where it is asserted that what you see in front of you, the objective and physical reality, is not real, and what you do not see, namely the Brahman, is real. Now, this is something which is of a extreme position, but then this is allowed. This is allowed because Vedantins, particularly the Advaita Vedantins, give justification for their claim. And what is the justification? The justification is that the reality that you see is not permanent. So that which is permanent is only the reality. You have the similar argument in Plato, who claims that the reality that you see is a copy of, or even a distorted or imperfect copy of, forms which are immutable. They are not changeable, they are permanent. So this is something that the subject allows. Now, you have a very important aspect of this available to you in this enigmatic empiricist, Bishop Berkeley. Berkeley makes a stunningly important philosophical claim. And what is it? He says that all that you have is perception. Perception is the source of knowledge. This is like other empiricists like Hume and Locke, who too privilege perception. But Berkeley radically differs from the other two. The difference lies in the following. According to Locke and Hume, there is perception, there is experience, and this experience is experience of an external object. So there is an object, matter, and you have experience of the matter. This view of Hume and Locke concurs with the then prevalent scientific worldview proposed by Newton's mechanistic paradigm. Berkeley rejected this aspect of the other empiricist, namely the existence of matter along with experience or perception. He said that all that you have is perception and there is no matter outside perception. If there is matter outside, if there is a matter, then that matter is within the perception. That would lead one to claim that what I see in front of me, the table, this table is for him nothing but my sensation. Banging it, I get the sensation. Seeing it, I get the sensation. This is nothing, this external world or the matter is nothing but my perception. Unlike other empiricists, he rejects the existence of an external world or matter outside perception. This is the radical claim of Bishop Berkeley. He gives the justification by making this allegation on the other empiricist, where he says that other empiricists like Locke and Hume have compromised on the primacy of experience. They are empiricists who compromised on the primacy of experience because they made perception dependent on matter. Berkeley alleges that, like in the earlier time where you have God, in these two empiricists, the matter plays the role of God, so that my perception is dependent on the matter, on the external objective reality. This, according to Berkeley, compromises on the primacy of experience. In contrast, Berkeley maintains that all that there is experience, and there is nothing like matter which is outside experience. That is the core that's the core thesis of Bishop Berkeley. Now, in support of his claim, or in support of his criticism of the other empiricist, he gives this following example. He says that the empiricist, or even in science, senses sometimes give you illusions. There is what is called as optical illusion, there is a sensory deception, and then the empiricist and the scientist will bring the help of both long rational procedure or the help of mathematics in order to overcome this deception. In other words, what you have in this instance is that they accept perception, but then they would also find that perception is vulnerable for deception, and they would bring external things like rational procedures or mathematical experience to overcome the defects of experience. So this limitation of overcoming the limitations in perception is what makes Berkeley make the following allegation on science. He seems to be saying that science, though begins with the realm of the tangibilia and visibilia, it moves into the realm of intangibilia and invisibilia. This, for Berkeley, was a betrayal of the primacy of experience as a first principle of human knowledge. For Berkeley, there is experience, and we have ideas that are rooted in experience. Ideas are larger, can be larger than experience because of the role played by imagination and memory. So, a mind can compound or divide experience to generate ideas. So, you have experiences and you have ideas. Ideas are rooted in experience, but ideas can be larger than experience. because of the role played by memory and imagination. So the next step that Berkeley makes, he has some resemblances to other empiricists and rationalists like Descartes, and they also have some divergences where he differs from them. Now, the fact that something which we know or perceive them entails us to conclude that there is something called mind which is having this perception, this experience. This is something which is like Descartes. Okay? So you have ideas, you have experiences, and there must be somebody who is experiencing these experiences, who is having these ideas. Similarly, you have complex ideas. There are complex ideas and simple ideas. There are complex ideas. Complex ideas entails that there must be something that subjects our simple ideas to operations such as willing, imagining, and remembering them. In other words, Berkeley contends that acceptance of primacy of ideas axiomatically entails that the mind exists. That the mind exists. Till now, there is not much difference between Berkeley on the one hand and other empiricists and even Descartes on the other. But Berkeley makes a radical shift by saying that the primacy of mind is not dependent on matter. Is not dependent on matter. The primacy of mind is dependent on the spirit or the soul or God. Okay. This is the move which distinguishes Berkeley from other empiricists. In other words, Berkeley holds that the very nature of our ideas demands a locus or a substratum where they inhere. Hence, the spirit or the mind is axiomatically disclosed to us in this locus. So, this is a self-disclosure. That is, Berkeley holds that the immutability of existence of ideas grants us merely the indubitability of our belief in the existence of the spirit or the mind and no more. So, he asks, for instance, how matter can affect things that are non-material, namely ideas are non-material. So, how can matter, which is material thing, affect something that is non-material, namely ideas or even experiences? So, he says that accepting matter is dogmatic. All that you have is experience, perception, and ideas that arise from experiences or perceptions. And as I said, the ideas can be larger than the experiences. Ideas are of two types. One is simple ideas that have one-to-one correspondence with perception, and complex ideas that gets mediated by imagination, willing, or memory. So, having rejected matter that exists apart from the experience, he says that knowledge is dependent on experience and experience is its primary source. The primary source of knowledge is experience. So, experience is the basis for knowledge and it is also the basis for ideas. Though that we have is experience, materialist accepted world that is not given to experience. He says, how do I know that there exists matter which is not given to experience? It is impossible to conceive of some such thing. Though experience is all that we have, other materialists projected, he alleges, matter that is independent of experience. Thus, he rejects by exposing the unreal status of matter and the undeserved credibility given to it by other empiricists like Locke and Hume. Referring to the ordinary discourse, where we do talk as if there exists a external world independent of us, that it existed when I went out of this room, it was there, he says that that is false. So what we see in the ordinary life and what we talk in ordinary discourse is not correct, because they believe as if there is an external world independent of my experience or perception, which is not acceptable to Berkeley. Having made a case for primacy of perception, Berkeley introduces the distinction between sensory experience on the one hand, reflection, memory and imagination on the other. As I said, that there is a close relation between experience and ideas. Okay? Ideas are rooted in experience. Ideas are simple and complex. Simple ideas are directly related to sensory experience. Complex ideas are mediated by memory and imagination. Now, Berkeley makes a further distinction between sensory experience on the one hand and reflection, memory and imagination on the other. According to him, sensation is independent of will. If something just happens, it depends only on external spirit who is God and who is infinite. So there is a relation between infinite God, who is external spirit, and the sensation, which is not dependent on my will. On the contrary, reflection, memory and imagination depends upon our will, and it depends upon the finite self. Okay? The knowledge of ideas is direct, but the knowledge of the spirit is inferential. So now to repeat, that sensations or experiences or perceptions are given to me immediately. Okay, I become aware of them, and this awareness makes me to postulate, it entails the postulation of a self and God. Okay, that's the first point. So there is experience and there is God. But the other important point that he makes is that knowledge of the ideas is direct. The knowledge of the spirit, that is God, is inferential. That is, we do not have a direct access to God or spirit. Okay, we know it through inferential. What is interesting to note here is, while Locke makes experience depend on matter, Berkeley makes experience dependent on God. It is through this he avoids skepticism. How do I know that I am experiencing? Because of the existence of God or spirit. While other empiricists rejected God as ineffable, Berkeley interestingly rejects the so-called matter because it is ineffable and it is nothing but experience and perception. That's an interesting aspect of Berkeley's epistemology and philosophy. In addition to this fundamental criticism at a very fundamental epistemological way, Berkeley also makes another criticism against the then existing and important empiricist or materialist or scientist, and this is with regard to the consequences of accepting materialism. That is, that if you accept that there is only matter and there is nothing else outside the matter, according to Berkeley, this leads to a reductionism and leads to the consequences of decline of morals. So he says that there is a need to project God and reject the Newtonian model by defending spiritualism and making a case for God. This is one of the important points that he brings into the discussion. Let me recall the main points in Berkeley. Berkeley found that there were empiricists who accepted experience, primacy of the experience, and also accepted the autonomy of matter. Berkeley accepted along with them the primacy of experience and rejected their acceptance of the autonomous objective material world. He said that accepting the matter along with experience tantamounts to compromising the primacy of experience. Rather, he argued that all that exists is perception, and there is no matter outside perception. Matter is given to us in perception, and that's it. And where is matter outside perception? How do I access it? And he seems to be saying that accepting matter which is outside perception is similar to that of accepting God who is not known. However, he accepts that along with perception there are ideas. Ideas are both simple and complex ideas are mediated by memory and imagination. The fact that I have experiences and I have ideas entails me to posit an external self, a spirit or God. So I have these things, and I know God through inference, whereas our experiences are given to me directly, and the complex ideas are generated through memory and imagination. What is stunningly creative and radical in Berkeley is that, unlike many philosophers of his time who sought to align themselves, who tries to calibrate their ideas with science that was a dominant paradigm at that time, whether it is Galileo or Newton or other important scientists, Berkeley came up with a package where he outrightly rejected scientist claim, which is to accept the material world independent of experience. This is stunningly revolutionary, this is stunningly radical, and in fact paved way for the later movements of subjectivism and also the phenomenological movement, where intentionality plays a very important role. It might look as if what Berkeley is saying is an extreme position, but what is important about it is that the guts he had and the kind of reasons that he provided in support of what he proposed will remain as one of the important contributions in Western epistemology.